could it be? But me, your man, Louie Tee, here with a brand new series that I've been kind of hinting at debuting here for a little while now, entitled Louie's Lurking in the Comments. So I've made no secret, right, that I'm a champion level lurker, right? Something that I've been doing for many, many years now, and I still do to this day, right? Hell, I even lurk in my own comment section a lot of times. I tell you, I see everything, but hardly do I even like, love, or comment. Even though I've seen the comment and it internalized it, I didn't make an action to let you know that I saw said comment. Well, that is going to change with this series. I aim to try to be better in the comment section at liking, loving, and commenting on the comments that you guys make, because a lot of the comments that you make are very interesting. This show is going to also highlight some of the best comments, um, and pick those out and take the discussion and go even further and in depth with that discussion. And so also sometimes I do long form content, and so oftentimes a certain segment of that show will get lost in a 2 hour and 33 minute, live stream. And for those who don't have the attention span, don't have the bandwidth to digest a 2 hour and 30 minute live stream, they may miss something that was a great conversation or something that they might enjoy because they just didn't make it to that portion of the show. Hopefully, this will highlight some of those moments as well. And so, I aim to do some of those things, maybe some other topics come up, things that I deem interesting, something that may have caught my eye in the comment section. Boom, we discuss it here on this program. And this is going to be something that I try to do every weekend during the off season as we get into these, slow periods here where things die down. We get into the summer series. This is going to be something that's going to become a staple on the weekends as well. You do a host of shows throughout the course of the week. You get some interesting comments during the course of the week, and you pull out the best of the best, and we discuss them here in this particular program, Louie's Lurking in the Comments. So, with that said, this is probably going to be one of the longer episodes. So, what I may ultimately do, knowing myself, I can be long winded at times. This might get to an hour long or so. I'll cut it in half and make it two parts. But normally we'll try to keep this to roughly 30 minutes or less when we're doing this. So hopefully I can kind of stay in line with that kind of mindset with these two episodes potentially. But again, this is the first one. I can be a bit loquacious. We'll see what happens, right? So with that said, let's dive in and start. And we're gonna go back to a week's time. Last Saturday, I did a live stream entitled Meet the Pass Rush, where we talked about where the pass rush was going to come from with this team in the upcoming season. The pass rush was solid last year, not earth shattering, but you lost, quite a bit of sacks from a season ago, with Dante Fowler Jr.'s departure. Jonathan Allen is no longer here. Jeremy Chin gone as well. I think that right there in itself, I think is 15 and a half, maybe 16 sacks. I think Allen had 3. I think Chin had 2, and Fowler had 10 and a half. So that's 15 and a half sacks that are now unaccounted for on a team that I believe last year had, 43 sacks on the season. So this was a discussion that I said, gonna have to see if guys can come in here and, improve upon, some of the statistics they've had in previous years. And it's gonna have to be a collaborative effort. We don't have a dominant pass rusher. Let's talk about some of the comments here. This is one of the shows where I thought the comments were really, really fascinating. So I think I pulled the most comments from this particular show, and we'll go through, all of the other shows that I had from last Saturday up until present day. So this first one is from @NoAffiliation11, who writes, Fowler had 4 total sacks in 2023 before getting 10.5 last season in Witt's system. Keyword, system. I believe we can get that production from another player on defense. I do not think we can get it from one player on this defense. And that was kind of the gist of the live stream, which was we don't have like Fowler. There's this misnomer, and I saw this quite a bit in the comment section from a number of viewers who seem to think that Joe Witt has some sort of system that helps guys get sacks. Did you guys watch a Joe Witt system last year that helped Dante Fowler Jr. get 10.5 sacks? Because I didn't. I saw Dante Fowler Jr. winning one-on-one matchups. That's what he did last season. Now, I'm not telling you that he was winning at a ridiculous rate and, was really applying tremendous pressure on opposing tackles and quarterbacks. But what I am telling you is he was the guy that was most consistently winning one-on-one matchups last year, and the 10.5 sack total is representative of that. However, Joe Witt Jr.'s system didn't get guys free runs at the quarterback. Okay. The one guy that may have benefited from Joe Witt's system was Frankie Louvu, because we ran a lot of double A gap blitzes, and sometimes it would confuse the offensive line because, both guys could be blitzing on the play at the middle linebacker position. One guy could be dropping out, the other could be blitzing. Neither could be blitzing. And so, sometimes it's hard to identify who's going to come on that play and blitz and who's going to drop out. And Louvu would come free sometimes. Same with Bobby Wagner. But ultimately, there wasn't much of a scheme. There weren't any exotic blitzes. Our defense wasn't hard to game plan for. We didn't do a lot of things that schemed up guys to get free runs at the quarterback. How many times did you see guys coming unabated to the quarterback last year? Not very often. So the whole system thing, I'm not necessarily buying that. And I'll say this: if somebody and you're absolutely spot on about Fowler having 4 sacks in 2023 in Dallas before he came to Washington in 2024, and this was his second highest total of his career, this 10.5. And I think the highest total, was like 11. And that was back in like his second or third season in his career. So he hasn't done that in a very long time. And, right place, right time for him with this defense. But again, keep in mind, you're asking for, that was an aberration. That's not something that happens on a consistent basis. Like, guys don't just go from 4 sacks to 10.5 the next season. Like, it'd be great if Jacob Martin could come here and do what Dante Fowler did, right? Give us a repeat of that. But the likelihood is Jacob Martin is going to continue to be who Jacob Martin has been throughout his entire career, which is a 3 to 4.5 sack guy. That's what he's been, and that's probably what he's going to continue to be. I would love it if he comes here, gets you 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5 sacks. Anything even remotely close to that neighborhood, and we stole this offseason. But you can't just assume and expect that to be the case. So, you name me the one player on this defense that can get you that production. Because you said, I believe we can get that production from another player on this defense. So you're just saying any one random guy. I'd like to know who that guy is. Again, I hope I'm wrong. None of us thought. I didn't think Fowler was coming in here. I was just excited we had a situational pass rusher. That's it. I wasn't expecting 10.5 sacks from Dante Fowler Jr. last season. I was thinking more along the lines of 6, 6.5, and I would have been elated with that. He got us double digits and led the team in sacks last year. I'm not expecting any one guy to pick up that mantle and run with it this year. But if we can get 3 or 4 guys with 8, to 8.5 sacks, you're going to be able to do this as a team collectively. And that's what I see happening. I don't see one individual player doing that. But Again, once we didn't see Dante Fowler Jr. doing what he did last year. So who's to say that Jacob Martin or someone else that we're not thinking about ends up doing it? The guy that would do that would more likely than not be Jacob Martin. Like Dietrich Wise isn't just going to show up here and magically all of a sudden turn into a sack master and get you 10 and a half sacks. That's not happening. Javon Kinlaw could have a breakout season, but the likelihood is if he does, it's going to be more like 8, 8.5, not 10, 10 and a half, right? But again, you just never know. You just never know. But I don't think Joe Witt has a system like in terms of, faux blitzes and manufactured pressure where you still only rushing 4, but you look like you're overloading the side. They slide protection that way. You get and they drop out on that side and you get the pressure from the opposite side. It's still a 4-man rush, but now it just looks different. That's how you manufacture pressure. Those are faux blitzes. That confuses the defense and it gets guys coming to the quarterback scot-free, right? Free hitters. That's not what Joe Witt did last year. And I don't know if that's what he's going to be able to do moving forward. Thank you for that comment, no affiliation. These next two are from Jarrett Bailey, 1079. Same show from Meet the Pass Rush. And I thought both of these were really intriguing comments, so I just coupled them together. Let's read them quickly and react to them. And the first says, he says, also, while I have hope for Johnny Newton, he's a pass rush defensive tackle, so I don't want to see him in on first down. He's too undersized. Maybe he'll build the strength to play the run next year, but I don't see that happening this year. But he said, but I, like you, can see Johnny stacking a half dozen sacks this season, especially if we're playing with the lead as often as I think we will. And I think Amos improving the secondary will give all these guys that split second they need to get home. So let's talk about that one first briefly. Johnny Newton is undersized, but they knew that when they drafted him. They spent the second round pick on him. So clearly they believe he can not only, get after the quarterback, but he can also stop the run as well. However, they brought in other guys that could easily be like the NFL has evolved. We still talk as if it's 1991 and teams run on first and second down and then throw it on third down and 5. Like that's not the NFL anymore. You can't put, Eddie Goldman in the game on first and second down and assume that the other team's going to run it on first and second down. Eddie Goldman's going to have to defend the pass if he's in the game because on first down, teams throw the football. On second down, teams throw the football, right? So Johnny Newton is going to have to defend the run. He can't just defend the pass. And I do think there's a chance that Johnny Newton can stockpile some sacks this season. I think he can get to 6, just like you said. And Trey Amos being in that secondary, Mikey going to the nickel, Marshawn Lattimore being healthy, all of these factors will play pivotal roles in guys having more of an opportunity to get home, right? So Amos definitely helps for sure. We'll see if Johnny Newton, I personally don't think Johnny Newton's starting. I personally don't think he's starting this year, right? We'll see. Right now, I'm still leaning towards your 2 tackles being Javon Kinlaw and Daron Payne, and your 2 ends being Dietrich Wise and Dorrance Armstrong Jr. That's what I see right now. I could be wrong, and Dorrance Armstrong and Javon Kinlaw are your ends, and Johnny Newton and Daron Payne are your defensive tackles, right? And Dietrich Wise is a rotational, defensive end, one of the first guys off the bench. I don't think that's why they brought him here. I think they brought him here to be a better version of Clelin Ferrell from last year, a better, more durable, more impactful version of Clelin Ferrell last season. That's what I think they brought him here to be, a starter that actually gives you quality starting reps, not just a guy that's a starter in namesake. Jared Bailey also writes, Lou, I've been saying all offseason that this is the plan. Pass rush by committee. I'm not one of these hysterical fans demanding we trade half of our draft stock, whether it's this year or next year's, for an aging veteran who might give you 3 good years or could just easily give you 0, or just as easily give you 0. Valid point. I've seen it too many times. If you've been a fan long enough, we know about paying guys that were past their prime. I don't, and he's obviously referring to Trey Hendrickson, right? Um, we've seen it a lot. We've been burned quite a few times. But again, that was a long time ago. We've moved on, but I totally get it. And that's the dilemma that Trey Hendrickson finds himself in. I feel bad for him, honestly, because, I mean, honestly speaking, the longer Cincinnati holds on to him, the less likely it is he's going to get the deal that he's looking for. But he says, if we end up adding a guy, fine by me. Just do not give up draft capital. Those fans who insist we need a dominant pass rush guy really need to look at not just the current state of the league, but the majority of the entire Super Bowl era. Exactly none of today's best pass rushers have contributed to a Super Bowl, and almost none of them have actually contributed to playoff wins. What works now has been what always has worked best, which is pass rush by committee. Thank you for that, Jared Bailey. That's an interesting take. I've heard the same thing said about wide receivers, and how they don't, star receivers in this league generally don't win Super Bowls. Um, I think we've seen, big time pass rushers help their teams win Super Bowls. You go back to Reggie White in the, mid 90s with the Packers. Um, that was a big move to help get them over the hump. Charles Haley was always a guy that helped swing the pendulum, if you will, in the NFC along with Deion Sanders. Felt like wherever those two guys were, that was a team that was going to win the Super Bowl. Haley was with the 49ers. Haley was with the Cowboys. Wherever he went, winning usually followed, and he was a big part of that. But to bring it more recent, okay, I'm talking about guys in the 90s, right? He's talking more recent. Von Miller in 2021, remember, the Rams traded for Von Miller essentially as a mercenary for hire. And Von Miller was massive in the Rams winning the Super Bowl that year. They don't win the Super Bowl without Von Miller that year. They just don't. So I get what you're saying, though, right? I mean, these are very few and far between instances where pass rushers were dominant during a stretch run that helped their team win the Super Bowl. You're right. It's usually a pass rush by committee, right? I mean, Chris Jones has been dominant, right? He's not an edge rusher, but he's a defensive tackle that gets after. Aaron Donald, same deal, right? With the Rams, he was dominant in that 2021 campaign when they won the Super Bowl. Like, you need guys, right? But I mean, you've seen what the Eagles were able to do in the Super Bowl last year. Eagles didn't have more sacks than us on the season last year, but they still were able to wreak havoc on Patrick Mahomes and that really lackluster Chiefs offensive line. And they did it essentially with pass rush by committee. So I totally get it. But you still need to upgrade the talent. Like, our pass rush by committee isn't on the level of what the Eagles just put out there last year. It's not even close, right? We have to get younger, more athletic, more diverse on that defensive line. The group that we're going to put out on the field this year is solid. It's better than the group, I think, that we put out on the field last year. It's deeper for sure than the group we put out there last year. But it's still not a group that's going to strike fear in anybody's heart. That's for certain. So it does feel like pass rush by committee is going to be our mode of operation, and that's fine. That's what it's got to be, and that's essentially what I talked about in the videos. That I don't know if we're going to have a double-digit pass sack guy this upcoming season, but if we can have a bunch of guys in that 6 to 8 range, you look up and you got 52 sacks on the season, right? That's what you're aiming for. Next comment, 19-7 1967, Tuzak Tribal. Thank you for the comment. Who writes, I would prefer turnovers over sacks. Use your heads and stop your desires for a splash player. One player is not the way. It's a team effort. And it's kind of what he's kind of piggybacking off of what Jared just said, essentially. But I really wanted to focus on the first part of this statement, which is turnovers over sacks. I know I'm guilty of this. And I've mentioned this quite a bit, in the offseason, but here of late, the attention has really shifted to just pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. And as they continue to fill out the roster over the life of the offseason, and we saw the void that we felt like was there that was not filled at pass rusher, we stopped talking about the lack of turnovers and we start talking about needing a pass rusher, an impact pass rusher. But I don't think anybody disagrees with the sentiment that we need more turnovers. Like, sacks are cool. If you told me that we had 3 less sacks than we did last year, but we had, 8 more takeaways, sign me up for that. Or if you say you had 8 less sacks, which would put us damn near at the bottom of the league in sacks, but you produced 9 or 10 more turnovers, sign me up for that, right? Turnovers change games way more than sacks do. If you can create turnovers, you have a chance to win and win big in this league. So I think all of us would prefer turnovers over sacks. And we haven't talked about turnovers enough, I don't think. I know I've brought it up on numerous occasions, but I have definitely been fixated on getting to the quarterback and the edge rusher position. And it is a valid point that, turnovers are key. We need more of them. If we can generate more turnovers, it will make this team that much more dangerous. Thanks for the comment, 1967, to Zach Tribal. Next comment from Meet the Pass Rush is from BDB 220. I love the name, first and foremost. BDB. BDB 220 writes, the draft told me all I needed to know. They don't view edge as a priority. They're going to let it ride unless something too good to pass up happens. I think this might be spot on when it's all said and done. I don't think the draft is indicative of how they feel about the position, like not viewing it as a priority. They stuck to their board. I think we all appreciated how they approached the draft. They didn't just do the Jamin Davis, we need a linebacker thing. They didn't do the we need more turnovers, let's draft Emmanuel Forbes thing in the first round. They didn't do the thing that the last group always did, which was have a knee-jerk reaction and reach for a player that doesn't necessarily meet the value requirement because you have a need at a specific position. Don't do that. That's how you waste picks. That's how you keep your roster stuck in neutral, and that's how you don't grow your football program, right? Take the best player. I think they understood that they needed an edge. They wanted an edge. And had one been there that they desired, they would have taken edge. I just think they looked at the board and the board said Josh Connolly in the first round. So they took him, right? We could use an upgrade on the offensive line, so they took him. Second round, Trey Amos was there. We needed a cornerback. The cornerback position was about to get real dark fast. And, oh, by the way, that was a guy that they were considering at 29. It was a no-brainer to take him. And so I think they had some edge rushers that they liked at 61. Had they been there, they would have taken them. Those guys were off the board, I think. And we know one of the guys, Oluwafemi Oladejo, was definitely a guy that they liked. And had he been there, and I think that was one of the guys that had he been there, they would have taken him. But he wasn't. So they ended up going Trey Amos. And they might have taken Amos anyway, no matter what. By the time you get to the fourth round, I think there was one more pass rusher that went off the board a couple picks in front of us. Chargers took the edge out of South Carolina. And had he been there, I think it might have been interesting. But, they ended up going with, a punt returner. That makes me smile. And at that point, once you got to the sixth round, now you're essentially you're throwing darts at the board at this point. Like, I don't need any more William Bradley Kings. I don't need any more Shaka Tonys. You just took a Javante John Baptiste last year in the 7th round. I don't need another one of those. If you weren't going to draft something early that could be impactful right away, we don't need any more developmental edge rushers. We already got one in Javante John Baptiste. We don't need any more of those. So I think they viewed it as a priority. I just think there were other guys that fit what they were looking for and gave them better value at the time of those selections than what was available at edge. So I do think they're going to just let it ride unless, like you said, something too good to pass up happens. And they're gonna assess the position as you go through these mini camp, the OTAs, the final phase, and OT and mini camp, and if they feel good about the position, they may go into training camp with the way it is, and then as they go through camp, they may decide, you know what, we need to add a guy. They may get to camp, get through the first 3 weeks, go to the preseason and say, no, we're good. We like what we have. And if they stay relatively healthy, they just roll with what they got. So thank you for the comment, BDB220. Next comment is from Darnell Kelly, 9568, who writes, being more stout on first and second down will create more opportunities in the pass rush. Our coverages downfield will be better, allowing the quarterbacks to hold on to the ball longer. So this is a very consistent conversation that I see being had amongst Commanders fans. Us going out and being aggressive in acquiring all these defensive linemen is going to help us be more stout against the run. And again, this notion of first and second down teams are going to turn around and hand it off, I think is crazy. It's asinine. Like, it's not how the NFL works anymore. However, to Darnell's point, if you stop the run effectively, you take that aspect away from teams. Now they become one-dimensional, gives you an opportunity to rush after the quarterback. If your pass coverage down the field is better, tighter coverage, quarterback has to turn down, his first and second read. He's got to get to third and fourth reads. He has to hold on to it a split second longer. Maybe the pass rush is able to hit home. I always go back to the Titans game from last year. Like, one of the misconceptions about last year is that, we played a lot of tight ball games. Yeah, we did. We also kicked a lot of ass last year, and we were up big in a number of games. And that didn't change the fact that we couldn't get to the quarterback consistently. That didn't change that. The Tennessee game is the one I always go back to. We were up 21-0 after the first quarter and 28-0 after the early stages of the second quarter. Any ideology or any thought of wanting to run the football went out of the window after we took a 21-0 lead. That was dead. They ran the football a total of 9 times with their running backs in that game. Translation, they threw the ball a lot more than they probably came into the game wanting to do because they had no choice. Similar to if you're stopping the run on first or second down, they got to throw the football. So you should be able to pin your ears back, get after the quarterback. We had 2 sacks against Will Levis in that game. It's not like it changed our approach drastically. We knew the Titans were throwing the football on almost every play. You're down 28-0. You can't turn around and hand the football off. The clock is not your friend. We knew they were throwing, and we still didn't get to the quarterback. So this notion of, if we stop the run on first and second down, we should be able to get to the quarterback. Maybe, but there's no guarantee in that. Maybe we'll be able to get to the quarterback, but this notion that, hey, we got a better run defense, now we should be able to. We were up big in a number of games last season. And in some of those games, the pass rush did show up in those moments. Cleveland, towards the end of that game, the pass rush was stellar. Arizona, we dominated them early in that game and helped build that lead by getting to Kyler Murray, right? But for the most part, our pass rush wasn't dominant at all. And we had opportunities because we were up In most of the games we played last year, we were up. And in a lot of instances, up big, right? So that's something that, we'll see. Being stout on first and second down obviously is going to help you if teams are running the football and you're able to shut the run down, and they run on first down, it's a 1 yard gain. They run on second down, it's a 2 yard gain. Now it's 3rd and 7. That should help you. Now you got to find a way to get to the quarterback. If the coverage is good downfield, maybe you start generating more sacks. We'll see. Ronald Tillman, 173, writes, with all due respect, this pass rush will only be as good as the coverage allows it to be. They don't as currently configured, have a lineman that can consistently win one-on-ones. Amen to that. And I just basically said that. They have to be creative with their pressure packages and blitz at a high percentage to actually disturb a team's passing game. I believe that Peters will sign one of the big name free agent edges because he thinks this team is a contender simply based on how he built it. Another 1-year prove-it deal to a situational pass rusher like Von Miller would satisfy that need, in my opinion, because of at this stage of his career, playing less than a third of defensive snaps would probably allow him to be more effective without as many snaps. So I agree with a huge chunk of this statement by Ronald Tillman. It is well constructed, and it hits a lot on a lot of different points. The only thing that I would say may prove to be false is Adam Peters going out and getting a situational pass rusher. And that may ultimately be proven to be true, right? And if that's the case, then this statement is 100% accurate. I think we're going to have to be creative. I think we're going to have to, blitz at a relatively higher rate than we want to. All teams want to rush forward. Nobody wants to have to blitz, but we simply don't have guys that can win unless we rush as a unit. And the twists and the games and the stunts up front are just working to perfection, and they're collapsing the pocket and the quarterback doesn't have anywhere to go. Unless that transpires, you're gonna have to find ways to generate pressure, because I just don't see us winning a ton of one-on-one matchups. So as far as this pass rush being only as good as the coverage down the field is, I mean, you probably could say that about 90% of the teams in the league. But us having an improved secondary could, be a massive upgrade for us getting to the quarterback. We'll see if the two are, correlated and they're on a string with one another, right? We'll see. So that was all of the comments I found interesting from the Meet the Pass Rush video. So we'll stop this video, and the next video will contain all the other comments. I hit that 30-minute mark or so. I figured I would do that. And we'll come back with part 2, and we'll knock down all the other comments I found interesting. You know what it is. I appreciate y'all for kicking it with the kid. We'll be back with part 2 of Louie's lurking in the comments. See you next time.
LouieTeeNetwork.